Man, welcome to another session of Worship and Word. This is actually Worship and Word Conversations. It's a pleasure to be with you on this Saturday afternoon, this Sabbath afternoon, or whenever you're watching this. Some of you are probably watching this at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're excited that you are choosing to spend time with us, whatever time it is. I'm joined this afternoon by my co-host, Pastor Miguel Sarant. Pastor Miguel, man, thanks for hanging out today.
What's up, everyone? Man, Pierre, I'm grateful to make it on this week. I've been missing out on the Friday evenings. That conversation gets real juicy. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and we're excited to be here with all of you. We see you jumping on. We're going to ask you in the comment section to hop in. Just let us know if you're a Worship and Word regular, part of our Worship and Word family. Check in with us in the comment section. If you're new and trying to figure out what's going on, and if you're only going to be with us for 3 minutes, because we know that scrolling attention goes by really fast, drop in the comments and say what's up before you scroll by. We take all comers in our conversation today. I'm excited for us to get in, for us to chat, for us to hang out. But man, just tell me, man, before we dive into our conversation today about asking for help, I know it's going to be juicy. Just tell me, man, how's the week been for you?
Man, this week it's been a continuation of how my October has been going. I've been taking personal inventory this month, just trying to figure out, ways to improve. It's the last quarter. You got to have that final push, got to kill some goals, got to see some things through, but more so got to prepare for next year as well. And so this week has been another revelatory week, learning how to focus, even within, ministry. Man, a powerful word that I got from a podcast on just sermon preparation.
Yeah.
Is that the work that we're involved in is really thought work, not necessarily hard work. You're not laboring physically, but it requires focus and intention and thoughtfulness. Last week I learned that preparation is in fact worship for us as leaders, and so I got to be more intentional about creating spaces and intentional about being thoughtful and mindful in my process of preparation, and not necessarily put that weight on the actual performance. And so my gift to God is in my preparation for God's people, not necessarily in the performance for God's people. And I use performance not in a derogatory term, but we use our worship services as the hot light that worship services can provide. We can use that to temporarily fill our emotional coffers.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's in that preparation work and in that prayer and in that thoughtfulness and that focus that we ought to spend our time with God. And so that's what I'm learning this week, and I'm just blown away and excited on how I can implement that even more next week.
Yeah, man. I mean, you said something that provides some perspective for a lot of us, especially as we look at going to the end of the year, preparing for next year, the struggle that brings for a lot of us. And the truth is, man, a lot of us with goals like you, we want to crush, with things in our journal, with promises that we want to knock out and conquer. The reality is that without asking for help, guidance, and direction, they are just going to be things that are on that to-do list. So we're going to jump into that conversation in just a little bit. We're going to ask our Friday night co-host to join us for a recap, but we got Teresa on with us. We got Pam Horn on with us, Donna and Elaine Holt, Gerald Best, Shane John with us, Delphine Best, all hanging out with us. We know we got some people who are watching on YouTube, and you might not be able to check in because you don't have a YouTube account. Maybe you might want to get one. If you got Gmail, just kind of click and attach it, or you could send us an email with your praise report or testimony or prayer request to worshipwordministry@gmail.com. So want to bring on our Friday night co-host, Chris Bartley.
What's good? How
Man,
we doing?
Man, we're good, man. We're good.
Cool.
So man, thanks for joining us. I mean, you pull double duty with us and hang out every weekend. Pastor Miguel set us up, man. He just talked about things that he wants to crush, some reflection time that he's been going through. Man, kind of do recap for us, man, on what we talked about last night as it relates to Solomon and
Mm-hmm.
and kind of, you know, we're can be super smart in one area, but be lacking in another area and be
Just say it.
challenged.
We could be dumb. We could be dumb in other areas.
I was
But
trying. I was
yeah.
trying to. I was trying to make it nice.
No, we're gonna keep it unfiltered. So, Miguel, man, Solomon was in a very similar space, right? He did some reflecting too, and he was looking at. I'm looking over here because I'm really trying to just eyeball a verse over here, but he was looking at who he was, in comparison to the insurmountable number of people that God has placed under his charge. And he realized he couldn't do it himself. But the way he went about doing it is crazy. Pierre last night talked about the mount. Is it a mount? I think it's a mountain, right? The king went to Gibeon. No, I think it was a city. Gibeon is a city, Pierre?
Mhm.
Okay, so he went to Gibeon, but that's the place where in the high place, it's just a space that back then in the Old Testament, God had allowed sacrifices to happen, but we as human beings, we love messing things up. So God said, y'all can't do high places no more. Y'all just soiled it. Like now it's just about idolatry. And the height is no longer reflective of me. It's reflective of, I don't know, how high you think you can reach me in order to, get my attention, whatever it is. But they weren't even trying to get God's attention. At this point, they sacrificing all kind of stuff. So the crazy thing is that Solomon here, he's in this high place and he's sacrificing animals, right? We talking about thousands of animals. Maybe it was just 1,000. I don't want to, remove some of that hyperbole. The point is he was doing an idol form of worship in order to get God's attention. And God didn't show up. God waited until my man went to sleep and God showed up in a vision like, yeah, now I'm going to show up on my time and my terms. He talked about that last night. And what God asked him was, okay, so I'm here. What do you want from me? I think that it's so powerful that God, even in the midst of Solomon's when we say imperfect, his flawed way of worship, God still showed up. That is awesome. So he shows up. And then what Solomon asks for is wisdom and knowledge. We looked back in the recap, right, Pierre, last night, after, in the backstage, I guess we looked at Second Chronicles, where Solomon does directly say, give me knowledge and wisdom. But First Kings 3 adds a layer of context here, which I love, because he says, give to your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil. So that piece right there is like, give me the heart, and then give me the knowledge and wisdom. So we understand that the knowledge and wisdom that Solomon was looking for was not earthly wisdom, but it was the wisdom of God. And so, man, we covered quite a bit, but that was really the crux of what it was. Solomon was in a position to understand who God was. When God showed up, he said, okay, this is who you are. And then he talked about himself. This is who I am. This is what I lack. And this is what I need from you, God. And God said, cool. Because you didn't even ask for the extra stuff, I'm going to give you the extra stuff too. And so we even talked about that. God, give me the heart. Everything else is an added benefit. But it was in the midst of him being administratively and spiritually flawed. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Man, this the challenge of being given so much blessing from God and being so effective in one area. And I think we all wrestle with this, but then having another area where we're just like we're struggling majorly. And what we want to wrestle with today as we look at Solomon, but also look at our lives. And we got 3 other guests who are hanging out with us this afternoon. We want to bring them on. But I want to start off with our question. I'll pull up our question. And our question are, what are some of the challenges to asking for help when we need it the most? What are some of the challenges to asking for help when we need it the most? And invite you to jump in the comment section as we talk about, as we deal with this question, as we wrestle with this question this afternoon. For you personally, and I know we can paint in broad strokes and all these different ways that we can put things together, but we want to ask you, when it comes down to your life, your job, your family, the things that you're dealing with, what are some of the challenges that you face when you're trying to get help from people? Sable's with us.
Look who's in.
Yo, say we're gonna bring Sable on. We're gonna bring on Dr. Julian Johnson
Dr. J.
to hang out with us. We're gonna bring on Denise.
Oh, you just rolling them out.
Marcel,
Yeah, roll
just
them out.
roll them
Roll
out.
them out.
Denise, Marcel, and then
Hi, guys.
last but not least, I actually convinced my wife to hang out
Hey.
with us.
Hey guys!
So we're all in this place together. We want to do a couple of things with us as we are jumping on and having this conversation.
Looking like the Brady Bunch out here.
Listen, gotta hit that share button. Gotta hit that share button, and you have the more conversation you have with us, the more the magical algorithms tell people, hey, there's something going on here. So we want to dive in. We just want to dive in this conversation about asking for help. Dr. Julian Johnson, man, good to see you, Doc.
Man, great to be on today, and I'm so glad to see everybody on. Everybody's booed up today. Everybody's booed up today.
Oh man,
Not everybody, Doc.
not everybody. Man, Auntie Denise, Marcel, thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you. Great to be here. Me for a change.
Yeah, we always hang out with Ali. Ali's been with us for a while, but it's good to see you. And then my wife is right upstairs, so I can't act up. She can see me.
Hidden footsteps.
Right. So let's kind of dive into this question as we relate to asking for help. And we got some things coming up in the comments. People are saying for them, they're wrestling with. Gerald Beth says, for me, I'm wrestling with who else is gonna know.
That's
That's the challenge for me.
Yeah.
Who else is gonna know?
Wow.
Teresa says the fear of being rejected, afraid of being rejected. Pam Horn echoes the same thing, the fear of being rejected. Teresa says this idea of somebody throwing it back in my face later. So, man, let's talk about personal life, personal journey as much as you want to share. What are some of the challenges that you faced with like picking up the phone, sending a text message, or even admitting? Let's start from there. Admitting that you need help.
I mean, I'll dive in. I think that one of the things about admitting that you need help is identifying what you need help for. And I think part of the issue is not knowing what the right question is. When I first started pastoring, man, I was like keeping it real with everybody. I was like, man, these people like this, these people like that, these people like this. And I realized it was an issue that I had. But then the other thing is I didn't know what questions to ask. I knew what was going on, but I just couldn't frame it. You feel me, Miguel? I couldn't frame it in what would be the most useful question to get my help. So I think that's the first thing. May not know how to frame it in a way that I need help. I know I need help. I just don't know how to ask for it.
Mm.
And I just want to piggyback on that. Not only not knowing how to frame it, but not knowing who to ask. And I think that's kind of what some of the people in the comments are saying, that maybe you've been burned by asking the wrong people for help. And now you're further on in life.
Yeah.
You've moved on from that moment, but you haven't necessarily healed, and you're hesitant to open back up and to ask for help because it admits that there's a area of a lack and there's a vulnerability there. So the people that are going to help you, you're hoping that they won't hurt you as well in the process.
For me, some of it is cultural. You know, y'all know. Listen, you better bootstrap. You better get it done.
Yeah.
We've seen our parents do it, right?
Yeah.
And there are different degrees of it. Like some of our parents are hardcore. Like we go down to the grave with what we need help with until Thankfully,
It's
mine
true.
weren't to that extreme. But at the same time, everybody that wrote the fear or the might has actually happened to me. So when it has actually happened, you put up a guard. I know for me that it was easier to struggle with asking for help when I had something to lose versus when I was homeless and I had nothing. Easy, like easy, right? So God is like, the homelessness was one part, but that was to work out one thing. Yeah. But I'm gonna now set you up and still put you in need. Now what you gonna do? You better send them emails out, boy. That is the piece for me, because especially if it's written, your stuff will get out there. It's just the reality, right? You have no control. And this is the biggest piece for me, guys. You have no control over your narrative. So Dr. J, right? Even if you know what you need and you know who, you have no control over who manipulates or who misunderstands the story of your need as soon as it exits your thumbs, your mouth, and you are just left to the devices of people.
That's right.
That's why you got to trust God.
Oh,
So
you
that's
said a
mine.
word. You said a mouthful there.
Yeah, that's why Jonathan McReynolds wrote that song, man. People.
Yes. I think the difficult thing for me when asking help, like Chris is saying, like, you don't want people to throw it in your face. You know, like I've had experience where I've asked someone for help or asked a question, and the response was kind of like, why don't you know this type of thing, you know? And my personality, I like to be correct. I like to be in control. And so if I'm already asking you, like, you don't have to throw it in my face that I don't know. Like, I know it took me like a day to ask you in the first place.
Right.
You know? But yeah. And so it's like, and then also it's a pride thing where it's like, I should know this, you know? And so then there are a lot of times, and I even tell my staff this, just ask me, don't sit and mull over with it. You can save time, but there's a lot of times where I waste time because I'm like, I should know this. Why don't I know this? What could I have done to even know this? You know, and it's just a hot mess. So yes.
Can I piggyback on that as well? So I think for a lot of us, we were raised in a school system that really gave you merit for knowing before you even got into the classroom.
Yeah.
It did not reward people for exploring and uncovering discovery. And so to not know for us is a sign or a major deficiency within us, because we get graded for not knowing. Kids may have had, exposure long before, so we're growing up in fear that if I ask a question and everyone else knows the answer and I don't, I will be ridiculed and mocked. And that is still in our brains. And then it doesn't stop at school. It goes into the childhood. You're supposed to know this. Why don't you know this? Why aren't you at this level? And so we are taught to be self-sufficient. And the reality is people that are ultra successful create teams and they recognize their inefficiency and build around that.
I know.
They're supposed to be everything in one. And that's just not reality. That's not realistic at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
I definitely relate to that, Miguel. For me, I guess with asking for help, it just goes along with the shame behind it. Just to me, reaching out to someone for help, it's like, you should know this. You should have this together. Why don't you have your life together? So many times I feel more comfortable asking people I don't know for help than the people that I do.
Come on with that.
It's crazy. You feel so much more comfortable to be vulnerable with people that you don't know than the people who you know might throw it back in your face.
Because you ain't gonna see them.
You're
not gonna see them in the street.
Yeah. Yep.
I think for me, I want to piggyback on the whole shame and pride thing. For me, I was a single parent for, I think, 11 years. And so my mom was a single parent. My mom was a single parent of 4 girls. I was a single parent. My sister's a single parent. And so it was just like, and I'm the youngest of my mom's 4 girls. And so it's just like, all I saw was these women doing all of this stuff and getting stuff done and not asking for help. And I'm just like, well, I'm supposed to do that too then. I'm not supposed to ask for help. I don't need to, because they did it, I can do it. Knowing that, I'm struggling with these 2 little girls, and I'm just like, well, I'm not going to ask nobody for help, because people will look at me and be like, well, your sisters did it. Your mom did it. Why are you asking for help? Why can't you do it? And then on top of that too, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I also went through with the girl's father an abusive situation, and I didn't ask for help. And so just to see myself looking back, thinking like, man, why didn't I ask for help? But the reason why is because of shame. Like, I didn't want people to look at me and be like, why is she still with this dude?
Yeah.
Why is she allowing this to happen? Like, why isn't she stronger than this? She can just leave, or, all of that stuff that people think sometimes think about you when you're going through this. She should just leave. It ain't that difficult. Why is she doing this? She's stronger than that, all of that. And so I would say shame and pride is what made me not ask for help initially.
I want to throw on the screen real quick. And I think Denise is opening us up for a deeper level in this conversation. But I want to throw on the screen some points that I got from a book by Brene Brown that we're reading. Colleen, what's the name of the book we're reading together?
Daring Greatly.
Yeah, Daring Greatly. She mentioned something in her book. She mentions feminine norms, the conformity to feminine norms inventory. And this one for men as well. I'll put that up a little later. But as we identify in our culture what it means, like to be feminine, like you're feminine if you can knock out these 8 things. If you're nice in relationships, if your body type is thin, but you have to be modest, but you have to be able to handle all the domestic responsibilities of cooking and cleaning, and you have to be able to care for children, and you have to be in a romantic relationship, but then you have to be you have to practice fidelity, and then you have to look good all the time. Like, these are the things, as she talked about in the book, Wrestling with Shame, that women wrestle with, trying to have it all together in a perfect way. And the challenge of asking for help when you feel like you don't meet the standard or the norm. So for the ladies on the panel, just kind of your response to those 8 things. And then it's a masculine version of it as well that the guys will dive into. But how do you wrestle personally with some of those norms or standards that life tells us we need to conform to?
Listen, okay, so I tell people the story all the time. People who get married, I tell them all the time. Before I got married, I was Superwoman. I was studying for my CPA exam. I was working. I was going to the gym. I was visiting my family. I was talking everything. I was doing everything. And then as soon as I got married, I felt like marriage was my kryptonite. And I could not measure up. I mean, I'm sorry, baby. I love you, though. I love you. No, but and I mean, he didn't know all this was going on until I think I finally told. I don't know. Maybe he heard me telling somebody about it. But like,
he knows now.
He knows now.
We all know.
No, but I felt guilty, because I mean, when I first started working, I was a staff, but by the time I got married, I had been promoted. So my responsibilities were more. So I couldn't, when I got home, I'm tired. Like, I don't feel like cooking. I don't feel like cleaning. I don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel like watching nothing. I don't want to do anything. And I had this picture in my mind of the type of wife that I wanted to be. And I'm not even gonna, and like my mom is Superwoman. I mean, she's a nurse. She works doubles, comes home, cooks, does all that stuff, right? So I had this picture in my mind of what I thought a wife should be. And when I wasn't measuring up to that, even though it wasn't something he was asking me to do, I felt guilty. And I felt like so ashamed. And and to him, he's like, sit down. Like, what are you doing? Like, I didn't ask for that. I'm good. And me, I'm like, but no. And then he's like, no, I'm good. And I'm
within yourself, you're like,
yeah.
Why aren't I doing this? Yeah.
I had to remind her that I'm a big boy. I never missed a meal. I'm gonna figure it out.
Well, I totally say, well, I get that. It's especially being a mom. It's like, oh my Lord, so much. Especially being West Indian as well. It's like, you gotta be able to handle this stuff, girl. It's like your mom did it, so you should be able to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like society just piles it on. Like, you got to be a good wife, good mom. You got to have the house clean. You got to look good for the church. It's a lot of expectations on us out there.
Yeah. I think it's easy. I think initially, going back to Sable's point, I think for me, it was easier, again, because it was just how I saw things done. It was just easier for me to be like, I can do it. Don't worry about it, Ollie. I got it. I'll just do it. I'll do it all. And he's like, well, what am I here for then? What do you need me for? And I'm just like, I can just do it. And on top of that too, I think because I'm kind of a perfectionist, admittedly,
Yeah.
so that's another reason why it's difficult to ask for help, because you may not do it how I want it done.
Yep.
It might get done,
Help
but
me,
you might
somebody.
not do it how I want it done, right? So it's
There's
just
a lot
like,
of healing
I'll
going on
just
today,
do it.
Doc.
I'll just
A
do
lot
it.
of healing.
It's moving in the room.
Yeah.
I can feel it.
And the crazy thing about it is, if it still gets done, what does it matter? But I'm just
Yeah.
like, you ain't doing it my way though. So
I
you know,
receive all that. I receive that. Yes.
it's crazy.
So any of y'all, have any of you ladies have had the clothes folded and you had to refold them? That's just a
yeah.
simple.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I've done that several
I wasn't trying to
times.
put anybody on blast, P. I
Yeah.
wasn't trying to do that.
Why
Oh
you coming
man,
after my home, man?
Yeah.
I was just trying to find a simple example.
Yeah.
My bad.
So what I had to put in my mind, because I was like, I'd be like, hey babe, can you just do it this way? And once I do that, he don't want to do nothing. He doesn't want to do anything. So what I put in my mind was, okay, even if he doesn't do it to the way that I want it, at least it's helping. Now it's half done and I
Yeah.
can finish.
Yeah.
So that, and then I also just I'm not in the room. Like I don't want to see, because I can't help but offer my expertise.
Mhm.
So I just leave the room.
So
Right.
what I've learned in our marriage is that we operate very, very differently. I am huge on exploration,
Mhm.
whereas her perfectionist side says this is the only way it ought to be done. Well, I want to find 30 different ways
Mhm.
for it to be done, so I can find the most efficient way amongst the 30. I want all the options first, and then but she starts off with one.
Well, because I'm like, babe, I went through all those scenarios already, and I'm just letting you know that this is the way.
And that's not enough for me. I gotta see and I'm learning to respect that. And we talk about pride. I gotta okay, let me try her way.
Yeah.
And if it really means something to her, I'll go with this. In areas where she doesn't care as much, I can go explore and do my own thing. So we're learning to find that balance in our household.
Yes.
I think that's a good segue. Let's
Yeah.
let's wrestle with some of these masculine norms. So we weren't going to get off easy. You had to know that was coming. So listen, male in society, for us, you got to win. You got to have your emotions in check. You got to be taking risk and violent. You got to dominate. You got to be a playboy. You got to be self-reliant. You have to put work above everything else. You have to have power over women. You have to have an open disdain for homosexuality, and you have to recklessly pursue status. This comes from an inventory called the Conformity to Masculine Norms Inventory. So you can Google it, look it up, Conformity to Masculine Norms Inventory and the Conformity to Feminine Norms Inventory. So gentlemen, let's talk about some of these masculine norms, and then from the ladies, talk about how you wrestle with the men in your lives as they wrestle with these norms. Dr. J, talk to us, man.
Now, I think the reality is that many of them are correct. I think that many of them are correct before marriage. I think most of them are correct before marriage. I think for me, I can't speak for anybody else, but I would say that there's a factor that, as I think Denise was speaking, and also Sable and also Colleen, as the ladies were speaking, I was listening and I was recalling in my mind the pursuit of perfection over progress. And I think that too often we're trained, at least from young little kids coming up in church, to pursue perfection and not pursue humanity. And I think that the idea for me in seeing all those things is that you got to be the perfect man. You got to have it all together. You got to have the ladies. You got to have the name or whoever. I don't necessarily agree with that one. I think that also one of the things that's not on there is that you have to have the money in order to fuel the masculinity. I think that's an underlying economic factor that may not be there, that everybody wants to see a man who's successful, got the nice car, got the nice house, hair's tight, shape up's right. You got twists or braids or whatever you want to call them, locks. Everything has to be perfect. And I think that part also goes up to our own religious life, where we try to find and be the right person, find the perfect mate, instead of finding somebody who we can journey with in our shared humanity.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good.
So I think the most popular word in finishing this MBA is winning. I got like 3 books right now that's like playing to win, how to win, you know, and let's be real, they're all written by men, you know, so even just from a business standpoint, I mean, obviously it's a male dominated culture,
Yeah.
you know, it's a game and you win at the game.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's ethically, that's so when winning came up first, I'm like, of course. And so with the primacy of work, I would put that into what Dr. J was talking about when it comes to, you know, you're talking about money. So not just financial stability, but just the financial buoyancy for everything to happen. And you know what? I think those might be my top 2 out of the 3 or 4 that are on there, is the primacy of work and winning. So God got me in a place right now, bro, where I don't feel like I'm winning. And boy, the kind of work he got me doing ain't nothing buoyed up.
Ain't buoyed.
So, but yeah, that definitely resonates.
Man, there's a lot there.
Yeah, it's a long list.
It's a very, very long list. I would say, let me think. So from children, we're kind of taught a couple different things. One is that men never deal with emotions, which is probably the biggest lie.
Yeah.
And it comes from a really antiquated way of thinking where men are mainly tools for survival.
Yeah.
So you're here to hunt, you're here to lift heavy things, you're here to do the hard work, to fight wars, and emotions should not be a part of that process. And so, like Julian said, it comes from a mating perspective, that the primal man for mating is a man that can put work first, a man that cares for himself in exceptional ways in terms of, you know, physique and all that kind of stuff. He's strong physically, he is emotionless, that he is suave in his speech, that cares about winning and dominance. That guy, and even in today's culture, that guy is kind of labeled as, well, you know, you hear the term alpha male.
Yeah.
He is, you know, top pick. But in reality, the people who have changed the world are deeply aware of people's emotions.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, like Martin Luther King changed history. He was deeply aware of emotions. He cared about other people. People who have changed the world have literally been able to do that. And I see the struggle, because, all right, so let me say this. The gospel cuts through that swiftly.
Yeah.
Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you. Well, how can I demonstrate my dominance? How can I just demonstrate I'm a winner when everything I have was given?
Wow. Wow.
You know, so,
Okay.
so I have to accept the fact that even in my own situation, I am a byproduct of God,
Yeah.
and not a byproduct of my own alpha male qualities. Man, everything was given to me. I am grateful for the opportunity that I'm in. So it cuts down a lot of this alpha male conversation, and it really, for me, it just turns it on the opposite end. Yeah.
Hazel says a few minutes ago, the courage it takes to still be true to who God called, anointed, and needs you to be, even with all the societal pressure. And I think that goes right along with what you were saying, Miguel. Like, the gospel cuts across the masculine and feminine norms in terms of what society says we're supposed to be, and firmly says you can't do anything without God.
But you know, that doesn't negate the fact that there are personality types, right?
Yeah. I think that's
when I
what
think of
Gerald's
John,
talking about.
you know, or maybe John isn't even a good example. He was a son of thunder. I was about to pit John against Peter, but nah, according to the word, John was a bad dude, you know. But I'm thinking of what's the example that it just left my mind. But thinking about those who may have an alpha male personality, it's because, you know, all right. So, and maybe Miguel, you can speak to this contrast between the alpha male and the beta male, right? And for those who, okay, Pierre, this is probably a good example. So, when we were back at Andrews and we had a group dynamics, we'll call it a group dynamics experience back at AU. That's how we'll frame it.
There you go. Put together. Okay.
Colino, we had a group dynamics experience. And I remember that at the end, like towards the end, Colleen, you might remember this. I remember towards the end, we had this huge fallout. And I ended up speaking up. And one of the more prominent ladies that was in our group was like, "Who is this? Is this?" You know, and she called the person's name who was like the dude, the alpha male at the time. I realized something about myself is that usually if there are multiple or maybe just even one who carries it in the group, good. I'm gonna fall back, right? But at the moment where it's needed, 9 times out of 10, you know, I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna be that person. But it took a while to understand that, because when it comes to personality types and when it comes to trying to define what masculinity looks like, you may think that it always has to be on. You always have to be in the winning position, or you always have to be the dominant person. And I think that the more that you are comfortable in who you are, you begin to not necessarily code switch, but you know how to manage your own behavioral patterns, your tendencies, even how you speak and how you move in certain contexts. It shows, I think, more maturity. The other thing is this: when I look at Proverbs 31, I don't see the virtuous woman as the typical traditional position yourself in front of the man, Ruth. Like I don't see that. I see an entrepreneurial woman, if you read it, who don't need a man. Like if you actually read Proverbs 31, she don't need nobody. But the choice that she has to be with somebody, bruh, it almost breaks all of the normal the factors that you mentioned, the feminine norms. And so anyway, I just wanted to put that in, where I think that we feel like just because we have a predisposition, we feel like that's just who we are and that's who we need to be all the time in every context. But we're not even like that at work. We code switch at work.
Oh, honestly, I want to ask about kind of managing relationships, but Dr. J, I felt you about to jump out of your seat. I want to go to you before I transition in this conversation.
Yo, man, the thing is, I think that what you were saying, Chris, about knowing a role and a position at a time. You could put it in sports, you could put it in anything, but I would like to put it in this perspective of understanding your own personal value. And I think that when we understand our own personal value, I heard it like this one time. A guy was talking about, are you going to sit at the head of the table? And he was like, well, he said, it's your house. Are you going to sit at the head of the table? And the guy was like, man, all the chairs in this house are my chairs. So I can put wherever I want to. They're all mine because it's my house. And I think that when we start getting to the point where we start, let me say this the right way. When we start gambling away value in bad choices, then I think we begin to feel that somebody has to be better or higher or lower, as opposed to what's best for me on the team. Should I be a Rodman? Should I be a Pippen? Should I be a Joe Dumars? Should I be, you understand what I'm saying? What is my role in this moment? And I think in a relationship, especially with me and my wife, who's not here right now, but at the same time, in relationships, you have to know, okay, is she better with money than I am? Or am I better at this than she is? Is she a better this than I am? And it doesn't diminish my value because we team Johnson. So that's what.
So I think that's a good segue. Miguel, I want to jump in before
Yeah.
you do. I want the ladies to help us wrestle with how do you deal with the men in your lives as you see them wrestling with masculinity norms, and then conversely, how do you want the men in your lives to best support you as you're wrestling with Shane says society says if you're a male and you need help, you're weak.
Yeah.
And then Delia says
Wow.
she's told her daughter, let God build you a man, because a list that looks good on paper, like we checking all the boxes on paper, but in reality that might not be it. So how do you kind of support the men in your lives, husbands, brothers, fathers, all of that, as they're wrestling with these norms and sometimes the apprehension to ask for help because of the norms? And then conversely for you, how do you wrestle with either accepting help from the men in your lives or feeling like they're not trying to help me enough?
Well,
I thought Sable was about to go.
I was. And I feel like you were too.
All right, well, I'll go. I guess for me, it's like everything else. It's realizing that we're both learning as we're going and leaving that space open, for each other. So if I sense that, Pierre is struggling with something and for himself or he can't get that help from me necessarily, I'm like, babe, reach out to whoever that I know that could help him. Because I know for most of us, like we were talking about, it's hard for us to do that, to reach out to somebody else for help. So yeah, I will tell Pierre, babe, maybe you should call so-and-so. He might have some good advice for you. Because, that's how we learn, how we grow.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
For me, I guess, the other part of the question was what, Pierre?
Yeah.
How do I approach asking you?
Oh, if we put this between me and you, yeah. I said men in your life, but hey, no.
It's a learning process as well, because it's like there have been times I just don't want to ask for help. Like I just want to do it myself. And now I'm learning, like, man, it's okay. He could do it. He could handle this. And it actually feels really good to know that you have someone that he may not always get it right, but you trust that person, that they got it handled. I don't have to worry if I leave this weekend, the house ain't gonna burn down. So it actually feels good, I think, when you put that trust in the individual that they could actually handle it,
Yeah.
I think for me, I think what I try to do with Ollie is show him who I see that he may not see in himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I just try to build that up.
Go ahead,
by
Gal.
speaking that into him, because, and I think he says this a lot, and I may say it wrong, but he says that I treat him like the man he should be. And what I do is I just try to envision how God sees all of us. I don't feel like I'm necessarily, singling him out. Well, maybe I do, this favoritism type thing. He's mine. But I think that I just try to reinforce into him who I know that God says that he is.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the world says, regardless of who he might be trying to be according to the world's standards. Or society's standards. I think I just try to point him back to God and who God says that he is. As far as me asking him for help, I still haven't perfected that yet. I've perfected being a perfectionist, so I'm on that level. But I think, though, that when I do ask for help, it will be him that I ask help from. I'm the most comfortable asking him for help.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, still wrestling with that one completely.
In terms of, I guess, letting Miguel be the man he is, I try not to bother him. Like, he goes through phases of, I guess, cultivation, planting seeds. Like, he goes through these stages, and I I just try to be a listening ear, because I know I want him to be comfortable to explore. That's what he does, and I don't want him to feel like he has to work a 9 to 5 in order to like make me happy. Like I'm comfortable with, all right, well, let's fund the dream, boo. Like, you do what you got to do, and I'll make sure that this is good, because I know that in the future it's about to be popping,
Yeah.
And then when he's having his low moments, I say, do you want to talk about it? Do you want my advice? Do you need help? Because I noticed in the beginning, I was giving all this information and he wasn't even absorbing it because he didn't want to talk to me. And that's okay. Like, don't, like, if your man don't want to talk to you when he's having a low, don't be offended. You know what I do? He don't know this, but the tea is coming out tonight. I'll text Pierre and I say, call your friend.
How you gonna tell him?
Because he don't know when it's happening.
These are facts.
He doesn't know. It doesn't happen often, but I just like, call your friend. And that's it. Because I know that especially if I know what's going on, I know that, like Colleen was saying, this person can help, even if it's just being a sounding board. And then in terms of myself, I'm still working on that, because, and I tell Miguel all the time, like, please, like, if you see I'm struggling, just give me even if I know I be rejecting it. I know, but I don't want you to stop, and I was listening to his podcast this week, Jesus and Jollof, and it was an episode talking about basically killing yourself to be everything, right? Yeah. And one of the girls, her mentor told her, like, you need to focus on what's sustainable and not perfection. Because I mean, looking at all these roles, it's really perfection. It's in the perfection bubble. And a lot of times it's not easy to hold up your image. It's not easy to get things right all the time or be right all the time. It's not sustainable, and we out here killing ourselves to be perfect. So it's
like, I think in society we end up being lonely. It's like we're meant to suffer alone. Like, you have this issue, you can't talk to someone about it. You're weak if you reach out to your friend. Like, why? No. I'm gonna call so and so because I know she'll give me some good advice, or just be there to listen. So I guess it's pushing through all those things that society places on us that says, oh, you're weak, you're this. Just get rid of it. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Delphine says, for me, I've learned or still learning to respect the wrestle. He's flesh and blood with real life challenges.
Yeah.
Learn to listen and support without condemnation, even in the slightest way.
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick? What the women have spoken about and demonstrated is something that we deeply need as men, because when we face the world, they only recognize our accomplishments. They look at our skin. They pick us, apart, as they do with women as well. But when we're home, the people that we're with not only recognizes us for what we've done in the past, but they see the vision for what God can do for us in the future. They constantly feed us, whether it's telling Pierre to call me, or they create that environment where we can see the vision before. And I could just testify for myself. A few years ago, I would be afraid to do 90% of the stuff I'm doing right now, but Sable would push me like, this is a no-brainer. And in my mind, I'm like, it's not. It's a far-fetched dream, and I don't think I am worthy to even pursue it. Wow. Here I am, and I'm realizing in the year 2020 that I am an explorer. I just found out about this. I was birthed to do this. And she saw the vision in 2011, And I'm grateful that God places her and people like her in my life to do that. And I'm trying to figure out ways as a husband, as a friend, to reciprocate, not necessarily what she's done for me, but what she needs for me to do for her the way it's done for me.
That's good.
Very good.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Johnson had something to say.
I saw he sat
He was
up.
like-
He sat. He put his hand like he was in the
it
Baptist
was so,
church.
he was so good that I had to put the finger up. You know what I'm saying?
Point.
Yo, but I mean, there would be no doctor in front of my name if it wasn't for my wife.
Yeah.
Come on now.
She literally told me, she said, honey, I love watching football every Sunday. I mean, 100%. But she said, honey, if you can just for 2 years not watch football on Sunday, you can finish your doctorate. Now, most people, it
Wow.
takes them 4 or 5 years. I got my doctorate in 2.5 years. Most people don't know that.
Wow.
Well,
But it's
they know
because-
now.
Well, they know now. But because my wife was like, yo, man, if you just focus on this, she said, it doesn't matter what people say about you or what people say about your doctorate. They can't take that away. And she said, I see value in you.
Man.
I see potential in you.
Yeah.
And man, I just want to honor all the ladies today who are
Yeah.
lifting up their husbands,
Yeah.
lifting up their spouse and their partner. And there are so many wives. You would not believe the people that I talk to in counsel who basically are struggling to receive the love that they would hope that they would get from a man as a
Wow.
result of not lifting that person up.
Wow.
Somebody just needs a
Wow.
nudge.
Wow.
And Sable, you said a mouthful by saying, I know when to back off when my husband has a low moment. You didn't say when he's depressed. You did not say when he has issues. And even the way you framed it made me so excited. That's why I could hear Miguel's excitement as well. But I think when we lift each other up and like you said, Miguel, pursuing the goals that we have, and it doesn't have to be in a marriage relationship. I'm finding that there are people who are willing to support my dreams who want to see the best in me because they see value in me and they see the potential I have to offer.
That's good.
You know, I've
Yes.
learned to differentiate between what's a preference and what's a value. So for me, I'm not gonna. Let's be real. That the first one that was on that list winning, I'm not gonna. I prefer to win. No, I value that. Right? That's just the reality. And I think that that's part of for me, you know, in the masculine identity is choosing what would I love, but I don't really need, versus what am I going to be founded on as me. I mean, yeah, we got the word, but no, and now as me, my identity, who I am. I think someone made a parallel between Jesus and I think it was Hazel, Jesus versus Peter, right? So I'm rereading the book Wild at Heart and talking about that, you know, Jesus, he was meek, but he wasn't no punk.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he was not a soft dude, right? And so even the way that we look at scripture, particularly the character of Jesus, depending on the lens that we're looking through it, we may even see Jesus as somebody who's just a passive, you know, please, peace, be still, bruh. And so I think that for me is what's important, is even the values that Jesus had when he's talking about, I didn't come to bring peace. I came to put a sword between y'all. You know, now, mind you, we know what that means in context. You know, it's not violence, but the point is there's this differentiation, you know, that I had to make. And yeah, so it's been helpful. It's been helpful to understand, what do I need to base my identity on? And of course we say Jesus, but once again, through what lens, what characteristics, how did Jesus move? How did he react to certain things? Like when he was in front of authorities, he ain't mutter but two words. So you the king of the Jews, huh? They say you the man. That's as you say. Like, bruh, you see that in the movies and you be like, yo, that man's a G. How you you know? So
Man, so I wanted us to transition, and I mean, we're getting close to the end of our conversation. I want us to transition in how we navigate different definitions of help, depending on where we are in our lives. You know, we say, why won't somebody just help me? And for some of our family context, depending on where you were raised, I know in a lot of the African American context, sometimes we conflate help with money.
Yeah.
So there's this apprehension. Yeah, I will help you, but I ain't gonna give you no money. So how have you navigated what help looks like for you at different stages in your life, and how are you helping other people to frame their own definition of what it means, so that they know how to ask for it? I think that was the thing you were saying, Dr. J, earlier. Like, how do you even frame to be clear on what you're asking for?
Well, I'll start. One of the things that I've learned that I think is transferable for personal growth is being a part of a startup community. So, as a freelancer, you're thinking the help that you need is all I need is that next client because they will help me to pay my bills, right?
Yeah.
But somebody who's building a business, not doing business, and Pete, we talked about that, right? The difference between doing business and making business. The person who is the true entrepreneur, well, I shouldn't say true, but like just full on entrepreneur, they're not looking for money. They're looking for resources, particularly people. They will quickly find the individuals that's needed for each part because they, first of all, know what they can and can't do. Solomon, hello. He knew exactly what to ask for. But at the same time, they know that they need to choose particular people, knowing that it just might not work out, and that's okay. The help that they're going to receive, it may not work. But that's because, listen, if it doesn't work, we'll just switch them out, so to speak, right? Not that they're, machines in a cog, but the vision is bigger than just that one person. And so I think that that's what turned me on to realize now that you've got the people, investors will come in and will help you out because they see that what you got is actually working with the little bit that you have. So for me, I have to realize, and Dr. J said, what do I specifically need? It's not really money when you think about it. Most times it's not really that. Most times for us, it's an opportunity. It's the person, the gatekeeper, or the person who knows the person who will be able to just position us. But even in that, we better show up and show out. But I think that's where I struggle with, because now I'm going to wait and make sure that I show up and show out ready. I'm ready, right? The thing that Sable was talking about, I want to have the perfection. I want to have it down. So I'd be more prescriptive on what I'm doing as opposed to explorative in the actual thing. I think that's why a lot of consultants struggle, right? Because we fail to realize that if the majority of the work happens in the actual project itself, instead of me showing up to somebody and coming in with all the answers, I had to learn this the hard way. I'm coming in with all the questions. They don't want to really necessarily know that I have the answer before I'm talking to them. They know more about it than I do. And so I think that from a personal perspective, it's for me to also understand that it's pointless to try to perfect myself and then reach out to somebody. Now, there's some core things that need to happen, right? There's some stuff that we don't need help with from nobody but God. It's you and God. You need to work that out, and God will position us to do that. But outside of the isolation development that he does, everything else is okay. Stop trying to get yourself ready before you ask for help, because it's the same thing that we do in salvation. God, if I could just get myself ready, then I'll come to you. So I think the way that we reach out to other people is the same way that we treat our salvation with God.
Wow.
I don't remember Pierre's question, but I feel pressed to say something.
let it work in the room. Let it work in the room.
So for me, so I have levels of question asking, right? Right now, I'm like building my, I guess, brand or platform, and I have no issues asking people for help. I'm always in somebody's DMs, and honestly, it wasn't until I started asking people and researching that my stuff started to grow, so I have no issues with that. The middle ground is work. I have no issues asking questions. It's just I will hesitate a little bit because I'm a manager. I'm like, I should have the answers. And so I will hesitate a little more at work because I have that little pride piece, but I'm not going to hesitate for long because it's like time is money and we need the answers. When it comes to my personal life, it's hard to ask questions because I don't know, it's closer. It's most of the time you have to kind of break down and put your guard down. Like, I'll give an example. My sister, she recently lost her baby, and we went up to visit, and we were there for like a week, maybe a little longer. And me just being my family is not emotional. My sister is the most emotional one in like our core family. But to me, I'm like, I'm here, I'm sitting here, I'm at the table, I'm in the house, I'm good, but on our way back home, Miguel was like, yo, I wish you would have been on your computer less while we were there, and spent more time with your sister. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I was there. I was in the house. What you talking about, And then no, he was like, well, no, you were on your computer. And I was just like, and so the perfectionist in me felt bad. The sister in me felt like I wasn't being supportive. But then I was like, but babe, when you tell me I've been on the computer for a while, maybe I should take a break, I'm thinking you're telling me to take a break because, you know, I'm stressing about what I'm doing. When what you're really trying to tell me is, you know, you need to be present. And so I was like, look, I have blinders on. I am at work. I am in the zone. Like, you have to tell me what you mean, or else I'm not gonna know, you know? And that's not something that I would have even known to ask for help. And so I called my sister and I was like, girl, I'm so sorry. My bad, you know, because I was like, I didn't even realize it. We're talking about our parents and how they're not being, you know, as supportive as you want them to be, when I'm a part of the problem too. And I didn't even know, you know, and so it's good to have people around you that are not going to hold back, that are going to be like, yo, you did not do something good here. And then at that point, it's your job not to crucify them for telling you about yourself, but to be like, I need help in this area because clearly this is a blind spot for me. And so for me personally, I don't know what it's like to ask for help. I feel like I always have to be the one with the answers, and I'm the one that brings everybody together. I'm the supportive one. But then I'm like, well, no, you could do better, you know? And so that's something that I'm like, Miguel and my sister, they're kind of helping me to learn, is that not to be so laser focused, but to see people when it's not just at work, because we compartmentalize. We're like, my family's always going to be here. They're always going to be supportive to me. They're, you know, and we don't give our family the attention that they need. Whereas at work, we see everybody's emotions on their sleeves. We know what to say and when to say it, you know? So, yeah.
I think you framed some things for us as well, Sable. There's the asking for help, and then there's also the being open to when help is offered, especially in the case if it's not necessarily asked for. So, yeah, Colleen, what you thinking?
For me personally, you know, being married to a pastor, that's brought challenges when it's come to asking for help, where you have to really try to navigate the relationships, because you have to try to read people to see who you could really trust. So, yeah, it's been tough, but I've learned that there are people you could trust. Because before, I would not allow myself to get close to people. But yeah, allowing people the chance to, I guess, prove themselves that they are capable, there are trustworthy people out there. So for me, everywhere I go, people that I encounter, I tend to give them that moment, allow them to read them and to see, is this someone that I could trust to go to potentially for help? Because it's like, I don't want to be vulnerable and then be out there and I get crushed. So really trying to read people and see, can I trust this person? And I've learned, there are people that I could trust. And it's been helpful in every phase of my life. There have been people to help me be a better pastor's wife, whatever that means, and be a mom, be a better sister. So there are people out there. We just have to kind of allow ourselves to be open to that. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask Auntie Denise to give us some perspective as we close, and then I'm gonna ask Dr. Julian Johnson to give us a word, power word, and a prayer as we end our conversation. Man, it's been rich today. It's been revealing. There's some healing that has taken place in the room. So much contribution has come through in the comment section as well. We thank you for going on this journey with us. We also ask you to continue to support us at Worship and Word. You see underneath our Cash App handle, and then also our PayPal. And if you want us to pray for you, connect with you, I know some people are not necessarily comfortable with putting life in the comments. You can share an email, worshipwordministry@gmail.com. We will respond and pray for you as well. So Auntie Denise, give us some perspective, and then Dr. J, close us off with prayer.
I think that I can completely relate to what Colleen was saying about asking people for help and being a little bit apprehensive, because bringing the whole culture thing back into this again, right? I know for me, I've heard from my mother and from my grandparents, you know, in their West Indian accents, you can't tell everybody your business, and keep it to yourself, and don't say nothing, just figure it out for yourself, and all of that. And so that's playing in the back of my mind, right? And then I also have the, well, who can I trust type thing. And I've been burned before when asking for help. I've been rejected before. I've had my business talked about when I know I didn't tell that person, and they're coming back to me repeating it. And so you've got all of that. And then you have the fear, just everything that everybody's been saying in the comments. But I think that it's super important to just go back to God. Start there. Start with God and just ask him, who can I trust? Who should I talk to? Who can I ask for help? And also, too, I think, Pierre, your question was, how do you frame what to even ask? I think you said it, something like that. I think you got to know what it is that you really need help with. Because a lot of things, if we're honest, we really could do ourselves. But a lot of times, too, we have to frame the question, like specifically, sit down and talk to yourself. What is it that you need help with, right? Because then you'll know who to go to. But if you're just asking for stuff that you could really kind of do for yourself, you don't really need to ask for help. So I think we should start with God, and start with specifically asking what it is that you need help with. And I think that will narrow down how and who we go to for help.
Point.
I just want to say something before Julian crushes it. I know he's about to crush it. What I've learned in my short life thus far is that help most times isn't wrapped in comfort. It doesn't come in the way that we would want it to, but it's so very, very, very necessary. Not only that, for people like that's really bent towards that winning culture, it's tough to trust people, because we're always trying to decipher if somebody's trying to win some kind of a game, or if we're a pawn in someone else's match. So we're having to filter through and process very quickly, and that doesn't allow us to open up as easily. Not saying that's easier for other people, but that is a step in that process of figuring out help. So there's 3 areas that I recognize that most of us need help in. It's usually tactical help. You need someone who's skilled in a different area, prepare you for something. I need your tactical advice here. I need emotional awareness, or just some kind of awareness, whether it's spiritual awareness, emotional awareness. I need you to come and encourage me. There's something that I'm not seeing. That's what Sam was talking about. I have blinders on. I can't see. Yeah. Help me see and figure this thing out. But the third one is usually encouragement. The way that you can help is just, not stepping in, not getting overly involved, but being that coach on the sideline, cheering me on. I think a lot of us need help in one of those 3 areas.
Wow, Miguel, I think that I call you Dr. Miguel after that. There's nothing much to say, and I'm not one of those people that needs to speak after somebody speaks so profoundly. I would just say that I thank everybody for allowing me to share in this conversation. I've grown, and I look forward to connecting with all of you even further after this time. Is it all right to pray now, Pierre?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we thank you to God for this opportunity to connect. And Lord, where we have been ashamed, where the devil has given us a cloak of shame, we ask that you would give us your peace and give us a garment of grace. I ask, Lord, also for all those who are watching now or in the rebroadcast, who may feel like their story is too far gone for you to do anything for them. I pray that you would help them to know that you are right there with them, helping them to write the next chapter of their life. I pray for every couple that may be watching this. I pray for every person who is in relationship. And I ask, Lord, that as we wrestle with our identities, may we find peace in you, guiding us every step of the way. Bless the Worship and Word ministry and those who have benefited from it. Bless those who are donors and financial supporters. And I pray that you will multiply the efforts of this ministry to go far beyond its own original idea. Bless
Yeah.
each person today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Hey, we'll see you next week, next Friday evening at 7:30 as we continue with our conversation. And then next Saturday evening, Sabbath afternoon at 4 p.m. for Worship and Word Conversations. Take care.